good?
I'm good.
Cool. Welcome back, everyone, to the Open Up podcast and episode 70 with the founder of the Human Excellence Project, Paul Holliday. Bro, thank you for taking time to do this.
No worries, mate. Thanks for having me on.
And the reason you are on is because I keep getting people from here in Perth reaching out, telling me to talk to you. So you must be doing something great, and you might as well kick off the podcast by telling people what it is that you're doing.
Well, it was back in August last year that my dad finally passed away, and it was at that moment that I knew I couldn't carry on doing what I was doing. So I've always owned companies in the past, and I had quite a big building company at the time. But as he passed away, I was like, I'm not doing this no more. All that matters is giving back. So I got back to the UK. We went through the funeral, which is massive, and I got back from the UK to Australia, and I wrote down the words, the Human Excellence Project, and I had no idea what it was. But earlier, just before he passed away, I started to try and inspire him by showing him that I could get in the pool in the morning, before sunrise.
Wow!
Ice cold pool in winter, back in June, July last year, about 12 months ago, just to get myself out my comfort zone. And I started to get my son to do it with me. So I'd video us both jumping in together to overcome get out of comfort zones. And there was a lot of Wim Hof based stuff back then.
Yeah.
Like, let's see how far we can push this. Can you do this? You know? And that's where it sort of started then. And then once I came back, I sold my half of the company back to my best friend, Paul. And he took it on, and I just went, right, I'm going full steam ahead at this. And I didn't know what it was, as I say. So I started going down to the beach, and I knew I wanted to be a coach and help people, because that's what I'd done forever, really. Even in the companies that I had, I was always a mentor rather than a boss. I'd never let anyone call me that.
Yeah.
A boss, it was always just Paul. So then I started going down the beach with myself, and then it was myself and a good friend, Mana. And then it was Matty joined us. Then we were going to the gym at 3:00 in the morning, and then going to the beach at, say, 4:30. And then we started posting, and everyone was asking, what are you doing this? What are you doing? And it was about creating a new routine, creating a new life, and getting out. And I listened to a lot to Dr. Bruce Lipton.
Yeah.
Who coined the phrase epigenetics. And he was all about, training yourself to be in your conscious mind rather than your subconscious mind. So I realized that my whole life I've been doing the same things over and over again every day. So you do the same things and then you get the same results. So you know where your life's going. So what I thought is I'll throw everything up in the air. I'll get up at 3:00 in the morning, which I don't want to do. So that's a conscious decision. Then I'll go and meditate, which I don't want to do. So that's another conscious decision. Then I'll go and drink a hydration drink with some supplements in it, which I don't want to do. So again, it's more conscious decisions. Leave the house to go to the beach. I don't want to do that. And then you don't want to meet new people. And then you don't want to hug them. And then you certainly don't want to jump into the ocean. So it was all these things. It was like, I don't want to do any of them. So I just did them all. And as I did that, people start understanding that it isn't about jumping in the water. It's about taking back control of your making conscious decisions to start your day. And then what you find is when you do it for a week, everything changes in your life. You start to make conscious decisions in all areas of your life.
Yeah.
You become more aware of what decisions and choices you're making. Even if you're driving down the road, someone beeps at you, you become aware of that. That it's a choice at that moment, to be angry or not.
This is a selfish question. Does that consistency in like breaking through that comfort zone barrier, does that become an addiction at some point? Like you start craving that?
Definitely not. No, it's as hard today as it was back then.
That's amazing.
It was so cold this morning when we went down, because it was quite warm, because we've got a bit of a storm coming through at the moment. It was quite warm outside. It was like 18 degrees down at the beach or down at Hillary's. And then that your body's going to be warm. Yep. And the ocean's sitting at about 16. So when you dive in, it's so cold. It's so cold. It's so hard. And then you swim over to the pontoon, and by the time you get to the pontoon, you've got this. And then we're all talking as we're swimming over. There's like 30 of us swimming over to the pontoon. And when we get there, we're all then talking about what's happening in our bodies. Like your body starts to take control. It moves the blood to your organs, and you can't then feel the cold anymore.
Yeah.
So you start becoming aware of how your body works, that you're not in control of any of this, you know. Then we get out and we have a laugh how crazy we are, and we dive back in, and you know. But no, the answer to your question is no. You don't get used to it, and I don't think Wim Hof doing what he does, it just shows that you can overcome challenges.
Yeah,
you know.
That's awesome, man. That's resilience personified.
It is. It is. But we need this in everyday life, don't we? I look at every day as we are problem solvers.
Yeah.
You know, that's what we are. As a human being, the first thing you do, you wake up. You know, as you're waking up, you've got to do something. There's a problem to be solved. And then you've got to brush your teeth because your mouth. So you solve a problem. Then you've got to get hydrated. There's a problem. And everything's a problem. We're just solving them. So it's up to you whether you solve it or you don't.
Yeah.
You know?
That's awesome. Usually we start off with this question first. A little bit of a deep one, but could you describe yourself for me and the listeners who aren't quite aware of you yet? Or describe how you view or perceive yourself as a man and or human.
Wow. Yeah, that is deep. I view myself, again, over the years, I think that would have changed, but where I'm at now is like, the way I view myself now really is to help others, is to be of service, to lead by example. You know, there's a no negotiation part of my life now that this is what I'm doing. So if I was to describe myself, it would be that I'm a doer.
Yeah.
That I now, as I look back at my life, I know that everything I ever wanted, I got. So now I know that if I think hard enough, if I plan my day well enough, if I go through my plan, what I've got, I can create a future that I also want. So I would say to do, I'm a doer now. But by being a doer and by being honest and authentic, people believe you, you know, and they want to find themselves to be a doer and impact others in a positive manner as well. That's awesome. I'd say that right now.
Cool. I guess your story, we spoke a little bit beforehand, your story sort of starts with your background and how you were raised. Did you want to just dive straight in and walk us through from childhood there on out?
Yeah. So I was born in Liverpool in England and grew up for the first 7 years in a town called Kirby, which is, again, it's just on the outskirts of Liverpool, and it's like its own little city in itself. But it's got a lot of poverty, and we were probably the higher end. We were from like one of the private estates. Yeah. My mum and dad owned their house, so we were all right there. But, you know, coming from one of these cities where it's alcohol, really. Alcohol and addiction, and, you know, Liverpool's amazing. The people are fantastic. They're funny and resilient. But you have to be the same as everybody else. You have to fit in. You have to wear the same clothes. You have to talk the same way. You have to be the same. And anyone who, like, they went through a stage where everyone had crew cuts. They had the head shaved, you know, and a little 2 mil hair. Everyone had to have it. And if you didn't have it, then you were different, and then you would be picked on, you know. It's quite a hard thing to grow up in, because it was a man, you know, you had to be a strong man. Yeah. You know, and there was, you know, it was man up type of thing constantly. So it was a difficult place. Again, I was only young when we left there. When my mum and dad split up, because my dad was in sales and he was a bit of a womanizer, and he made we had this conversation before he died. I had lucky enough to be able to sit down with him one day and really go through both of our lives. And he spoke about this at length, about how he felt he let us down back then through making decisions in his early 20s that were selfish towards himself, you know. And my mum, seen that I was a bit crazy when I was 6 or 7. I was full on. And she went, I can't have Paul growing up, or Mark, or my sister Jenny growing up in Liverpool. So it's good to take them out, get them out of this environment and give them somewhere where they've got more prospects. So my mum, super brave of her. You know, I look back and really that decision really decided the life that I would lead. Because if she wouldn't have left there, I swear I would have ended up in prison, because I would have been part of the gangs and whatnot.
Yep.
But we moved down south to a place called Folkestone in Kent, and it was much calmer. You know, everything was a bit easier. There wasn't so much. You could be individual. No one's on your back. But me coming from Liverpool, instantly, I was the hardest. You know, because it was like, oh, you're from that crazy place, Liverpool. You know, so it was quite difficult initially to get friends and that, because everyone was a bit scared of us. But yeah, we moved down there, and that's when you look back how it was back then. You know, that was in the early 80s. It was a tough time to live. You know.
Yeah.
How old are you? How old are you?
28.
Wow. Yeah. So when were you born then? So 92, 1990.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. So I was born in 74. So we were in the 80s, mid to late 80s. Growing up down there, it was still a lot of poverty, you know, but it wasn't as bad as Liverpool. Yeah. But my mum met a guy called Ray down there, who became our stepdad. But my mum, for the first few years, she had to work 2 jobs to feed me, my brother and my sister, and then she bought a house, and she was constantly trying her best to give us the best. But the environment that we're in, and when I look back, they didn't know any different. That's how everybody was. They just, every weekend come and they just partied, you know, it was just a party.
Yeah.
And we would sit upstairs listening to the boom, 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 and they'd be partying all the time. Then there'd be a bit of, you know, kick-offs every now and again, and you just got used to that. It's just the way it was.
Yeah.
You know?
Growing up, going from Liverpool, where people were seen as hard, tough, crazy guys, going to Kent, being in this new environment, even though you're still young, were you able to be yourself at that time, or did you feel like you had to, I guess, live out this identity that people would, I guess, project upon you?
Yeah, well, I definitely started playing that role. You know, I definitely started playing the role as the hard man, and I took that on even in primary school. It was like, you know, but I always used it in a positive way. If anyone was picking on anyone else, I'd go and I felt like I'd use it that way.
Okay.
You know, that I would help them out rather than go. And I wouldn't fight anybody. I just need to be there, and then whatever had happened would stop. You know, it was never I had to go around beating people up, because I never did.
Yeah.
And that went through to my secondary as well. Me and my best friend Barry, we were both little lovable rogues, you know, and we'd go around mischievously doing stupid kid stuff, and, you know, greenhouses, smashing greenhouse windows, run away, and, you know, just doing stupid boy stuff, little petty theft and stuff like that, you know. But it's just the way it was back then. It was like we never had anything. No one gave us any money. We had holes in our shoes. We had the cheapest shoes around. But sport helped me through it as well. I played a lot of football when I was young.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. So I used to go and take myself to football games and just jump on my bike and ride down there. You know. But yeah, I was confident because the people put me on this pedestal that I was hard. Okay. Even though I never had to fight, you know, that sort of gave me the confidence to be able to go into any situation if I look back.
That's living the dream in school.
It was, yeah, it was. But I wasn't bright, you see. Okay. And looking back now, I think I would have been dyslexic because I struggled reading. And the teachers would tell you to stand up and read something. And I would never be able to talk in front of people. And wow. So I had all the confidence outside the classroom, take me in there, and I would crumble. You know, so I'd always put myself in detentions and stuff and muck around to get out of it. You know?
Wow. So did you ever feel like you fit in that environment? If you, like looking back now, you think you were dyslexic?
I was definitely dyslexic, definitely. And again, no one knew that back then. As I say, I remember being in the end of primary school and me being taken out of class to be able to have to go on reading lessons, you know, because I just couldn't get it. I couldn't grip it. I was always good at maths, but I was always rubbish at English. And I still struggle with reading out loud now. And it's only been recently that I've listened to certain podcasts. I was listening to Joe Rogan the other day, and he had Eddie Izzard on.
Yeah.
And Eddie Izzard was talking about his dyslexia, that he can't write nothing down. He has to put it all to memory because he can't read it right. And I was like, shit, maybe that's what I've got. You know, maybe the same thing. And here I am, bloody 44, still trying to figure this shit out. It's crazy. Yeah, so...
You said, like when you're describing the way you view yourself, that you're a doer. Do you feel like some of that comes from the model that your mum played out? Like the way she sort of rolled out herself?
Oh, my mum, the roles, my dad, even though he allowed us to go to Folkestone as well, which you've got to take your hat off to. His kids were going 4-hour drive away, and he was like, no, you take them, you know. So you take my hat off to my dad, but my mum, she was the love. We just got surrounded by love. Even though when we would always be messing around, I was always messing around and doing things wrong, but she would always, every day she would give you a hug and a kiss. Every day. Without fail, the love was there, you know, which was always a great thing to fall back on. But my dad, he was in sales, and he would deal with everything with his voice. He would solve every problem with his mouth.
Okay.
You know, never with his fists. Like the confidence had sort of come from him, and then backed it up with my stepdad, who came in as a role model. He was really hard. He was one of the hardest men I've ever met in my life. But again, he would use it to only against bullies. So like we had these great role models around us, you know. And look back, and even though they were all winging it, they didn't really have a plan. They didn't know what they were doing. They were following what happened before. My dad sort of knew where he wanted to go. He pushed boundaries and became like really successful in sales. But my mum just followed her mum with the love and the togetherness, you know, and keeping us as one. So they when I look back now, it's like I wish I would have had a bit more structured plan where I wanted to go.
Yeah,
you know,
that's cool. So in saying that you got a lot of love from your mum, and that both your dad and your stepdad sort of handled everything appropriately, did you feel like you were enough for all of them?
Yeah, they made me feel I was enough. There was never any pressure for me to do anything. There was never any. I was never pushed. Awesome. I think that's why I was never like academic, because there was never any like, have you done your homework? No, I don't even think it existed. You know. So my mum just let you be. You know, just be you. And she was always great like that. And whenever we went through any problems, she would come behind and just protect you. You know, we'd have this protection right round us all the time, and it was just love and support. And it was like at the end, like as I said, I lost my best friend when I was. We were trying to figure this out. I think I was 12, nearly 13, and me and him were like glue. We just lived our lives together. Everyone, the school were trying to split us up. My mum and his mum were trying to split us up. Everyone was trying to split us up because we were just nuts together. You know, we would just be walking down live bloody tracks, and it was crazy when we were together. But we just loved each other so much, you know. And it wasn't until I lost him and he got ran over by a truck on his paper round, and it was a really wet day, and he was walking with his head down, and he didn't see the truck coming, and the guy didn't see him, and hit him, you know, and went over him, and he died pretty much instantly. And Gail, Barry's mum, rang me that morning. That was a massive. And I was only talking since I was on Mars podcast what actually happened to my mum afterwards. Like, what did I do? And she said, you just dropped the phone. You went white. You dropped the phone and you ran to your bedroom. And I put my feet against the door. And she stayed outside the door for ages. She said, just trying to talk to me, trying to back me and she said, finally the door opened and I just ran. And she said, I don't know where you went. You ran out the house and you went for hours, and I remember just like losing it, really, like not understand the death. And it was a massive, massive moment in my life. It really was, and it wasn't until, as I say, I spoke to on Mars podcast, that it was a massive person in everyone's life around me.
Yeah.
Because no one had dealt with that before. Losing a son, losing a best friend, no one had dealt with that. So everyone went into this new mode of trying to comfort and support the best they could.
Yeah.
It was tough few years.
Did you said that like both your parents were trying to split you guys up? Not that it was your fault at all, but did you ever blame yourself, like, oh, maybe if we weren't together, he wouldn't have been in this situation?
No, that never ever came into my head. We were sharing that paper round. I'd gone up to Liverpool to see my dad, and I'd just come back a few days earlier. I hadn't seen him for a week or so. That was my biggest thing. I hadn't seen him. I didn't get the chance to say like anything good to him by the time I got back, because we were going through the girlfriend stage at this time. This is when we were going around girls, and me and Barry were together trying to get all these girls and going to discos and stuff and getting drunk back then. We were having such a good time. So no, I never ever thought of anything like that. It was all positive. It was all, I just took what great things he gave me, because he was always there for me.
Yeah.
He was a great friend to have around, I just missed having that support. But I had other great friends around me as well. It wasn't just Barry. So we all came together, and then I calmed down. I found myself, I got a girlfriend, and for the next few years, school went better. My girlfriend's parents were from a quite well-to-do background. They took me under their wings, seeing that I was a nice person, and then they started to help me grow and believe in myself a lot more.
That's awesome.
As well as my mum and everybody else, and then the years went by, and I knew then there was a point when I left school with nothing really, with crap grades. I started a college course doing business studies. I didn't even know what I wanted to do. It was just all words to please other people,
Yeah.
And then I realized at this point I was laboring. I was doing a labor job, and I was like, I hate it. All my friends were getting stoned, and I didn't like smoking weed, and I hated that. And one day I was in my room just crying my eyes out, going, I hate this. This is shit. And I just hated what was going on. And I met this guy, and he said his mum and dad owned some caravans in the south of France, in Saint-Tropez.
Yeah.
And he said, there's always work down there. And my mum said, take the money that you've got and go traveling. And I was like, wow, I could do that. Yeah. And she went, go on, do it. And it was like literally within 2 weeks, me, my brother, and a few friends upped and went. We just got what money we had, and we moved to France when I was like 16, 17. Another best move I ever made.
That's awesome, man.
It was amazing. But even that brought its own challenges. That was tough. We had to go into a place where we didn't speak the language, which is, again, this is the resilience. This is where the resilience started to grow.
Yeah.
I was putting myself into environments where I couldn't speak languages. I had to work crappy jobs. Initially we ran out of money, so we had no money. We had to figure out a way to live. It went to the stage where we had a ruler, me, my brother, and my friend. We had a ruler, and we would measure the French stick to the millimeter. That's how poor we were. And we would count the beans. You would get the same amount of beans because we had no money left, and then I got a good job as a holiday representative. So I used to bring people to the resort. So I'd go to the airports, and I would talk to them on the way back, which gave me more skills. And then I would they got me doing like plays and stuff. We would do once a week. We would do like a funny play in front of 100 people. So it was all these comfort zones that I didn't know I was getting out of all the time.
It's building a lot of confidence.
It was, and then it was just girls. It was just constant, just girls everywhere at that age. It was so good. Yeah, it was good times.
Just want to ask you one question about like losing your friend. It's amazing that your mum supported you in that way, just being there for you rather than trying to force you into dealing with it. But do you feel like you ever processed that, or did that just like linger in the background until you had to experience it again?
When someone passes away, it's like you think of them so often. You find yourself, whenever you've got a moment not to think, they pop in. They always come into your mind. And no matter what I did for them years after Barry died, every good thing that I did, like when I jumped on that train, when we got on that train, I remember thinking Barry would be here with us. He would be doing this with us, And whatever job I'd done, I'd be thinking Barry would be doing this, and and you put yourself, what he would do in this situation. You never, like, dealing with it was just constantly thinking of him, thinking of him in a positive manner, But it was like, did I ever deal with the trauma? No, I don't think so. I don't think I ever dealt with the trauma. Not until later in my life when I, went on ceremonies.
Yeah,
it wasn't until then. But back then, no. That was when I went atheist. I just went full blown atheist. And I used to love when like religious people would come to me. I used to actually come and talk to me, because my religion back then was Liverpool Football Club. So I said, you go to church on a Sunday, I go to church on a Saturday, I go to Anfield and I watch Liverpool. That's my religion. I believe in that. You believe in this other thing. I said, if there was a God, he wouldn't have took my friend away from me.
Yeah.
And it was like a few years after that, Ray was taken and he was murdered. My stepdad was murdered when, and it was at this moment where Ray was doing so well, and my mum and him had split up briefly, and they were sort of getting back together, and everything was going perfect. And he had paid for us to come to Australia. I was still traveled. I traveled from when I was like 17 to 25. And Ray, he told me to come and see him. I went down with my cousin, and he gave us like £5,000 each. And he went, get to Australia, go to Australia. I was like, you're joking. So we went and booked our flights, and like within a week we were coming to Australia. And it was not long after that he passed away. It was maybe a year after, maybe a year and a half after, something like that, that we lost Ray. And again, look back, and the support that I had built in Australia, I would turn to like mum and dad with my boss Keith and his wife Lynn. They took me under their wing, and they treated me like a son, and they gave us the best skills. Like they let us stay in their house. We never had anywhere to live, me and my two friends. And they let us stay in their house, and then they let us, they wouldn't do the dishes. They'd make sure we had done the dishes, and they made us clean our rooms, and they made us get up early and make cups of tea and lunch. And they put all these structure in, simple structures. And then he told me that when I was in the future, I used to argue with him that I'd hit my kids, because we got capped, and we got punished when we were growing up.
Yeah.
And it didn't do us any harm, and he never hit his daughters. And he'd look at me going, "You're just a blockhead. You haven't got a clue." I'd say, "What? I smacked him around." And then he was right. You don't. I didn't touch my bloody kids.
I was exactly the same, man.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. You just think you're going to follow them, but you don't. You realise that you don't need to do these things,
Yeah.
But yeah, I had some good support at that time as well. No one knew what to do.
So how do you deal with something like that? Because when you talk about that religion, and like your religion was Liverpool, but then sort of like that resentment towards any God, if there was one, for taking your friend, how do you then go from like still thinking about that every day to losing someone you care about in like some of the most horrific ways?
Again, there was no thought went into it. There was no structure. there was just surrounding yourself with love and support. But when I look back, the only way I could personally deal with it was alcohol and drugs.
Okay.
Mainly alcohol, because we were down in Melbourne. So I just get pissed every day and just hide it. And then you'd find the first 3 or 4, 5, 6 pints would be fine. You would be jolly. And then as you go into that switch off phase, you would just then spin to grief, and it'd be tears and blame. And if anyone bumped into me, they were getting a crack, and it was like, and that went on for a couple of years. It wasn't all the time, but the emotion would come in, and then you would have to let it out. And the only way you could do that was with blaming somebody else, thinking it was their fault, even though it wasn't,
Yeah.
And that went on for years and years. As I say, 2 years mainly, really grieving, not understanding it, and the finality of death is like, it's the phone calls. It's like, you can't just pick the bloody phone up and speak to them. It's that was the one. It's like, I wanted to ring him. As soon as I got told, my mum couldn't even speak. She was in that much grief. So I couldn't even speak to my mum for like a few months. My brother and my sister were just in bits. And so there was I was stuck in Australia. I'd overstayed my visa. So I was stuck in Melbourne. I couldn't go. If it was to go back, I couldn't go back into Australia. I thought I had a good thing going on at the time. I thought, and everyone was telling me to stay. So I just stayed and just as I say, just drown myself to just hide it, really. Just suppress it and just push it down. And I don't remember being like depressed, or I would have had like anxious grief feelings, but I don't remember going into a depression, because I had such even though I was getting drunk, I'd always have a good night.
Yeah.
I'd always have a good laugh. There was something going on good.
Did you have any friends around you at the time that you could talk to about it?
Yeah, but I'll have to speak to them again now about what actually happened, because when then things happen, it's like you switch off.
Yeah.
It's like your memory turns off, because all you're thinking about is that one person. You go into autopilot and you become, and I was thinking this analogy the other day, it's like when things are going well, you've got billions of things you can think of, and you can really go across the range of, when things are going well, you're not really focused on one thing, you're focused on everything.
Yeah.
And it just flows nice and easy. When things go wrong and you get that phone call that puts you on your knees, you've got one thing to think of, and you put all your focus, all your conscious energy goes into that one thing. It's bad. You want to go and kill the person that's done it. It's like you turn into a murderer. You turn into that. It's like, what is that? It's like, it's not me, but you just want revenge, because it was such a brutal murder. It was like, why? What's gone on? What's happened here? And it went on for months, and they couldn't bury Ray for months and months and months because of the trial. And the guy who murdered him had a wealthy father, and he had the best lawyers from London, all kinds, and it just went on and on and on. And they couldn't bury him, and it was just making it worse back then, and all the family had to go through the court case. It was just a nightmare.
And so you're not really even given an opportunity to deal with that grief that's constantly being brought up all the time.
That's right. There's no end. It was just, especially with murder, it's like it just carries on and on and on. It's like, so when I see a murder on the TV now, or if I hear of one, I don't really watch TV, but when I can understand what they're going through.
Yeah. Because
it's like there's a process that steps in. They take the body off you. They've got to do all these tests, and then it's given to to other forensic scientists or whatever to look at the body. And he's like, Jesus Christ, what's going on here? It just goes on for months.
It's a whole lot of grief and uncertainty.
That's right, yeah.
Man.
You don't know. You just want end. And then once you've had once he got buried, then you can start a process,
Yeah.
Which doesn't get any easier. It's still you're trying to learn. It's only time. Time is the healer. You just have to get through each day.
Yeah.
But this is what I'm coming to with everything I'm doing now, is like to structure your days. We'll go into that later, but you just end up being in Groundhog Day for years and years and years, not dealing with things.
Were you were you ever able to, I guess, release that anger like in a non-toxic way, like without drinking and giving someone a crack?
No, like we'd talk about Ray, and the family would get together and we'd have. But again, coming from a family, that's what we did. Everyone drunk. So as soon as you get together, there was booze there.
Yeah.
So then it'd start, and it'd be funny, and then it'd go, as booze always does. It starts funny and then goes serious. You do stupid things at the end, but as I say, no, not really, not without drink. There was no counselling. There was none of that offered. None of them services offered. I think I thought about going to a church. I thought when he's getting buried, I'll go to a church, and I didn't even do that. I went and sat in the field because I thought I couldn't even deal with that. I was like, what is that? I hated. If there was a God, I really hated him then.
Yeah.
It really took me into I definitely don't believe it now. Why would you do that? Take him, but don't do that to him. So that was even more solid then. My atheist views were solid. They were, and anyone who spoke to me, I would tell them that. I was like, I believe you're light switch, die off, no more worm food. Next, get on with it. And it was years and years and years went by. But then, whenever I wanted anything to go well, I'd always speak to Ray or Barry. I'd be going, right, come on. And I was like, what's that? What am I doing there? It's like, do you know what I mean? Look back and think, what was that? And then slowly you start to someone introduced us to, it was friends of ours introduced us to The Secret.
Yeah.
And then you start to think about manifestation and bringing things into your life. And then look back through my life, because I was pretty successful when I finished traveling. I had some, decent companies. We'd done really well. We had a lot of houses. We had a lot of money. We had decent cars, driving Porsches and stuff. And we had a lot of people around me with Ferraris. And some good times after that. But there was again, coming from that background, just driving the Porsches, there was no one told me any lessons of how to keep that wealth.
Yeah.
So it was like, I got the money and I was earning a fortune, but I was blowing more than I had. I was spending more because coming from that background, it's like, oh my God, you've seen Paul, he's flying. And the ego was just getting massaged constantly, and it was wrong decisions and choices. And again, it's just coming from that place. This is what I want to try and help people to have plans and structures in place.
What easy to look back in hindsight and point out your mistakes, but what was that wealth or that accumulation? What sort of void was that filling for you? What need was it quenching?
Well, I just thought that to be successful, you needed loads of money. That was it. Success was money back then. I didn't believe in anything else. So it was like success was just see how much money you could get, and then you show how much money you've got by having a private number plate on your car, having a really flashy car, having a really big house. So I ended up buying like 12 houses. Driving a big Porsche Cayenne when they first came out, and I had Audis and all this. It was all a show. Wearing the Armani suits and going to the best events. Going for lunch and spending £400 on a bottle of champagne for lunch, and it was just stupid. Looking back, if I would have had a mentor going, wait there a minute, and my dad tried to do it. And then what I did, like a fool, was look at him and I put myself above him.
Yeah.
I was like, wait there a minute. You're giving me advice, and at the time he had finished doing his sales, and I was like, you're driving a taxi, and I'm not listening to you. You need to listen to me. I was like, and it wasn't until he got his cancer that all of it happened at once. It was like all the advice he gave me, I was like, oh shit, it was all right. Everything he had said was right,
Just one last question on like the wealth. What did success mean to you then? Was it like fitting in or like impressing certain people? Or was it proving that you were worthy?
It didn't. It just you could never get enough, you know? So I always wanted to go fair. There was never, I didn't say, right, when I've got that, I'm going to be happy. It was just new people had come in that, and it would just grow. So it didn't mean anything. There was never ending goal. So it was only the global credit crisis that burst that bubble and took control of what I thought was success. I thought I was successful. And it was when that bubble burst and we lost everything.
Yeah. That
I realized that all I needed was them people that are around me again. There's like that support network comes. My mum's there, and my partner, like my wife, Melanie, she was there. And then we went on the next part of our journey, you know, and then that's when you realize success isn't that. It's your family, it's the support, it's the love.
Did you struggle with a loss of identity being someone so wealthy?
No, I knew how easy it was to get it. Okay. I knew how to play that game. So I knew when I come to Australia, like my missus was worried, and I was like, it's easy. I'll do it again. And then within a couple of years, I built up a pretty good artificial grass company and started importing grass from China. And it was all like, it was just turning up again and putting things in motion. But like sort of having the belief, the self-belief that no one could stop me. Whatever I want to do, whatever I put my hand to, it'll make it work, you know?
Yeah. Where does that come from? Because you were a kid who was dyslexic and didn't do well in the classroom.
I don't know. It's like my dad always told us thoughts become things. He'd always say, he wrote out on his Facebook wall and on his WhatsApp, and then he said, thoughts become things, you know? And he'd constantly say it to us all the time. He would listen to Jim Rohn and Tony Robbins, and he would give us the tapes. And he would always say to me, "If you listen to that tape," and I'd play it in my car back when we had tapes, you know. And I'd listen to it, and I wouldn't really listen, but a lot of it must have been going in. But you know, to think that he would constantly drum that into us, that whatever you think you can create, you know, and you can, and it wasn't again until later on that you think, shit. It was so true.
That's so powerful. You know? And that's the reason I'm asking a lot of this stuff is because a lot of kids are brought up with their parents saying certain things that they have to tell themselves stories about to make sense of it all. And then over time, those stories become beliefs, which end up limiting them.
That's right, yeah.
It's pretty cool to know that you've had parents who actually supported you and helped you manifest whatever it is you wanted to achieve.
Oh, God. Well, my dad said, job stands for just over broke. So he said, never have a job, never work for somebody else, be in control of your own destiny. You know, so I always had my own companies. I think I'm unemployable pretty much, you know, because you always, whenever you employ somebody, you always expect them to be as good as you, whatever and they'll fall short because they don't have the drive and determination to make that success.
Yeah.
You know, so over the years when I employed people, I would always look at them and see whether they wanted to be their own boss. Maybe one of the things I'd ask them really is like, you know, what do you want to be? And if you haven't got that drive and determination, it's like, nah, you're no good. You've got to want to be your own. You've got to do it for you.
Yeah.
You know, we say this now. I was like, don't create a ceiling. I say to my friend, if you're a bricklayer, you'll never earn more than a bricklayer earns. You know, so you're not a bricklayer, just take that away and just, you can be anything you want, but limiting beliefs hold us back.
It's so you
look at you, look what you're doing. Look what you're doing. It's like you opened up. You know, you've done this podcast and you just opened up to the world. You pull people to you. You help other people. It reaches so many others. You then become a valuable commodity within the community. Yeah. You know, someone to listen, someone who'll talk to. It changes your whole life, opening them doors. You know, don't put a ceiling. Don't say you're a job. You're a position. You're not. You know, find out who you are. Ask yourself them questions. Go inside and deep. You know,
that's awesome, man. I'm going to snip that for Instagram. Sorry, man. I took you off on a tangent, but you're speaking about how like when your dad got cancer, when you found out that all those lessons he tried to teach you finally sunk in. Can you walk us through what happened from there?
Yeah, it was the moment that he rang me, and I was in the kitchen here, and I took that call, and he told me, he said, Paul, it's back, and this time it's terminal, and again, it was that, turned off, forgot about the whole world. I just dropped to my knees, and I said, I'll have to phone you back, and phoned him back, and I just cried my eyes out on the floor. Here we go again. And it was at that moment, I was like, shit, because all you do is think about that person. At that moment, you just think about everything that they mean to you, you know, and you run through all the things that selfishly that you've done for them, they've done for you. And it was at that moment that you look back at all them teachings he would give me. You know, you go back into nostalgia and look at the phone calls where he'd helped, you know, the people he'd rang to solve problems when I didn't even know he was ringing them to. These all them things were going on in the background. And then you learn. That was when I started asking, right, what is this? What is this game? You know, and my wife said to me yesterday, she said there was a thing that she was watching, that when your grandfather passes away, that's one thing, you can deal with that. When then your father passes away, it's like, you're next in line. It becomes real. Mortality becomes real at that moment, you know? So it was like at that moment, it's like you start contemplating life and death. And it's not until you've yourself been through that you actually have to, like, what is this about? Why am I doing? Why are we playing this game? Why are we trying to earn this money? For what? For what goal? For what ending? You know, and that's when I really started asking some deep questions. For the first time in my life, I went deep on me, because the only answer around me was, let's go and have a pint.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the answer. I've done that, and I know it doesn't work. I've done it, you know. And then I look around me. I've got my dad's dying of throat cancer. My uncle died of throat cancer. You know, shortly after that conversation, I've got a lot of my other family that are struggling with drink-related illnesses. You know, nothing to do with them. It wasn't their fault. It's just the society that we grew up in. You go and have a pint, and then they have happy hour, and everyone rushes in to go and drink as much as they can in a happy hour, you know. And then you go back, and then what happens is it drains you, and then you feel like shit, and then you speak to your family in the wrong way. And it was our family full of divorce.
Yeah,
not togetherness. The society's full of divorce, not togetherness. And I was realizing that I was getting drunk that much, that I was getting myself into such bad states of alcoholism on the weekends that I would piss all over the house. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't even know I'd done it. But I'd wake up on a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning and be in the bed on my own. My missus would be up help sorting the kids out. I'd been out with the lads. Yeah, freaking, you know, legend. And then I would have anxiety come in, massive anxiety, like, shit, what have I done? What have I done today? What have I done this time? And then I'd come out and she went, I can't believe you said that, or I can't believe you've done that. And look what you've done this time. And I was like, oh no, I've got to stop. And that's where awareness kicked in. Like, this ends, no more, because I'm going to lose her. And she's everything to me, you know? And that's where my awareness kicked in, where a lot of people don't. They carry on making that mistake. And at some point, they just go, I've had enough and get out of my house. You know, and that's where I stopped drinking. I had to give up alcohol. And I realized then how powerful alcohol is.
Yeah.
The most powerful, destructive drug on planet Earth. You know, you just go in a pub today, go and look around, the ones the poor guys who are in there who are alone, and just look at them. They're vacant, they're swollen. Alcohol swells you up. You know, it takes away your dreams. It steals your reality. It can take your family off you. It can make you abuse people verbally, you know, violently. You know, all the fights and glassings and all this, all that happening in society no one will blame it, because it's only a drink. You know, but we glorify it. We glorify this drink like it's this magnificent thing, and it destroys. Like, this one of the funny things that I always say is, when someone goes on holiday, it's the only drug on the planet that you can take a picture of at the airport. You know, You always see anyone's going away, they've got a beer and a glass of wine. It's like, ting, take a pic. They're not even in it most of the time. It's just the ticket and the drinks. Like, that's what we associate to having fun. It's like, come on. Yeah, where's the togetherness? Where's the deep chats? Where's the conversations? Where's the love without the drink?
Yeah, I went through a period where I was very much reliant on alcohol to get through my day. Just hated myself to the depths and eventually made myself sick, man, really, really sick. But I tied in alcohol with this feeling of being relaxed or this feeling of being happy. So to go a day without having a drink or 2 or 6 or 12 meant that I wasn't going to be happy for the day. So I can understand why people get fucking caught up in that, especially if you're brought up in that society.
Shit, yeah. It was like, this is the thing, is like, they even set up clubs, football. Everyone thinks when you get into the later years, it's about it's nothing to do with the football. It's to get away, to be with your friends and drink. If you admit it, that's what it is. Yeah. That's what it is. And then you lose your weekend. You're not bringing your kids up, and then we bring our kids to come and watch. It's like, this is what we do. This is how we act. At 11 o'clock in the morning, we're all drinking. It's like, so you've got to copy me, and then this chain of life gets passed. It gets passed on. It's like, let's end it. Let's show them another way. Let's show them a better way. And it's like, and this is where I'm going now with the academy.
Powerful segue.
It is. It literally is. It's like, I've had to go through. A lot of my friends don't understand where I'm at now. A lot of people think that I'm losing it because I'm pushing.
Used to drink.
Yeah, well, I don't really see much of them anymore, and because I think when you go into people's company, when you've given up alcohol, and now I'm trying to understand what it is, and the podcast I listen to is like, you show them who they are. I'm like a mirror, and it's not a nice thing. Sometimes it puts them in a position they don't want to be in, and I understand that, because I if you come around me now, you're putting your scuba gear on, and we're going deep. I'm going to find out who you are, because one thing that I've found coming from the background I've come from is most men die in their 60s. I don't want to die in my 60s. I want to die in my 80s and 90s. I want to be able to run a marathon when I'm in my 70s and 80s. I don't want to get into this game where they tell us that retirement's what we're all aiming for. They won't even get to retirement because of cancer, because of all these illnesses, because of problems with your body. And they won't blame what it is. It's their lifestyle choices. It's them. It's the love and connection. It's the bonding. It's the doing the right things, instead of making them wrong choices and decisions.
And I can totally understand what you're talking about with your friends thinking you're the one who's gone nuts. Because I had the same thing growing up, man. My whole town where I grew up is just everyone, all the parents drinking in the garage, like drinking a carton a night, and that's what they do, and that's the norm. And like, if you wanted to be part of my friend group growing up, you had to be one of the boys in one of the parents' garage drinking with them. And so when I went through like 6 months of not wanting to drink, wanting to better myself, and wanting to get like in good physical condition, it was sort of like, oh, so you're not drinking anymore, you're telling us that we're not good enough. And so anyone who's dependent on alcohol is going to feel like you're attacking their identity.
That's right. That's exactly right. And that's how it works, And it's not fair. And then what I'm saying now is like, you can look back at generations, the last 2 or 3 generations of your family and your community, and then you can look now and see where that goes. We can see where that ends. You can see it's like it's in front of you. It's not hidden. You just need to look around, open your eyes, and be aware of it. Right? Then what we do is like Tony Robbins does the Dickens process. Where you can look at your life now. If you don't change anything, and he walk you through a process of don't change anything, and then walk you through the future of your life. If you don't change, if you carry on drinking, if you carry on doing this, how does it look? How does it make your wife feel? How does it make your kids feel? How does it make your mum and dad feel? And you walk through that process, and then you come back because it'll upset people, and then you walk them through the process of if you change? How does that look? How does the change look then? You know, if you bring these positives into your life, if you bring health, if you bring holding your wife's hand, walking on the beach, doing all these things, how does that look? How does it feel? You know, because life's about feeling, and we're chasing these feelings constantly. You know, so we've got to come back to, as I say, for me, one of the biggest is listening to Dr. Bruce Lipton, the placebo effect, right? What is the placebo effect? It's you take a sugar pill and you can get rid of 30% of every disease known to man can be cured by a sugar pill. So what's that? It's what comes back. My dad said his thoughts become things. So if you think that's the drug that's going to heal you, your body will create the right drug to heal it. Now, we can do that with everything in our lives. And I mean everything. That we can create our futures by our thoughts, you know? And what you need to do with that is to have a plan. And this is what we've got such a massive problem with suicide and men's mental health, because people are lost. And what does that even mean? That means being lost just means you haven't got a plan. You haven't got a map to where you want to go. Yeah, and you're lost in, you know. So what you need, for me, what you need is a plan, is a structure. Like, okay, it's not working out right now being you. Well, how about we do this? How we bring something new in, and we bring these, what works for other people, like my mentors, what works for my mentors. I'm putting this blueprint in place, this plan, this structure of people to live to. It's like, you do this every day, because if you want me to take you seriously, you have to take yourself seriously, you know? Yeah. And you do that by stepping up and by sticking to your plan and having the thought of what you want to be, who you want to be, you know? You take it seriously, take this shit seriously. It's real, you know?
That's cool, man.
If you don't, you'll be lost. Yeah. And then it ends like, it can end in really bad ways, you know?
Getting back to you, like you found out your dad's got cancer. You've, I guess, cried and then decided that drinking wasn't the way that you wanted to deal with or process this grief. You decided to turn inwards and start asking yourself who you were. What did you do from there?
My cousin had been the first one, Sean. He struggled with major depression. He went through a really bad few years in his life. One of his best friends committed suicide, and that took Sean down a path that he was going in a similar way. And he went and sat and did ayahuasca.
Wow.
And he went over to Holland, to a place called Midge, in Holland, and they facilitate ayahuasca ceremonies there. And he then seen that I was struggling and that I was asking questions. And Sean reached out and went, Paul, you've got to come and do this. You've got to come and as soon as you hear that word, ayahuasca, you're like, what the, you know, it's a sexy word. You're like, what's that? So then being me, I look into it. I look into it heavily. It wasn't like something I'm just going to do. Yep. I'm going to really, really look into this. So I researched it until I understood it enough. And then that door opened to me, and Sean organized a private ceremony. And before that, a friend of mine, Chris, when my dad had a major operation, he done a DMT ceremony with us. It was only me and a few of his friends, and that took me within an instant. I'm the type of guy that needs to see proof. You know, if I believe in anything, I have to see it. That's why I couldn't believe in God, because no one had ever shown me anything. I didn't understand epigenetics or quantum physics. I didn't understand, never looked at it at that level. Yeah. But the second you do so and have an experience like that, where you know that your brain cannot produce that, you know that them images and them things that you're getting shown and them things that they're telling you, you can't produce, you couldn't think that. And I thought, this is different, you know? So I then started like on the journey then of going inward, and that's when I gave up alcohol. Started to be more aware of the decisions and choices I was making, you know, became much closer with my partner and my kids, and then started to be aware of who I was surrounding myself with and how I could impact people in a positive manner, and everything started just to go down that way. And it was like meditation, mindfulness, and some great people started to come around me, and then we sat with ayahuasca, me, my cousin, my cousin's friend, and my sister went and sat in Holland, and that was the game changer. It was doing that. It's like, we need to get this medicine. It needs to be legalized across the world, and I believe Oakland has been the first one to legalize all psychedelics yesterday. So I heard today.
Wow.
Which is a massive move. And then you've got organizations like MAPS, which is the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, and Rick Doblin, who is doing 25 years research they've done on MDMA and psilocybin for post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah.
This work's being done, so it's time that we allow people to start to become mystical again and ask themselves some inward questions,
Yeah. The lessons that most people talk about from any sort of psychedelic or DMT trip is the separation of self, like the separation of like the spirit or whatever's in there from the physical body, and just this like whole new perspective on life. What was the experience of ayahuasca like for you?
Yeah, well, it's the ego. And I've sat a few times since. And when you learn about self, you learn what self is, and you learn what ego is, and your higher self, your lower self. You start looking at yourself in a different way. But what psychedelics seem to do to me is, like Terence McKenna says, is don't take too little, take too much, because you want to break through. Your ego will try and hold on to reality, because that's the ego death.
Yeah,
it'll try and hold on to this reality, and you need to go past that to find out. It'll break you down to nothing, and then it'll put you back together to everything, so you can see that who you are. Like, I'm not Paul. I'm not a Scouser from Liverpool. I'm not British. I'm not all them labels. I'm me. And you've got to go that deep. You've got to look really deep at yourself, at the roles you play, like the role you play as a father, as a brother, as an uncle, as a work colleague, as a buying something from a shop. You play a role. We go in, we know what to say, and we know what to do, and they play a role back, and we learn about all these roles. And then you can see everyone playing roles. We're all acting, and we're all trying to be okay. We're just trying to be okay. That's the thing.
Yeah.
That's what it teaches me, is that don't search for happiness. Search for okay. Just be okay. Because when you're holding your hand with your wife, walking with the dog and your kids, and you've just got this feeling of nothing, just peace, just walking down the beach, you're like, that's it right there. That's life.
Oh, you there?
Sorry. I just popped off. But yeah, it's that search for that.
Yeah, I think it's like Nick Saban says, focus on the process.
Yes.
The prize.
Yeah.
Oh, lost your video, my man. Oh, there you go.
I'm back.
And the same thing can go for happiness. Like, if you're always striving for happiness, you're not going to appreciate all the times that you're content, because you're searching for something more.
That's right. Well, for me, you don't know what happiness is unless you've been, unless you've really grieved, unless you've really been sad. You don't really know what it is. And then you don't know, I always say to my kids is that you don't know what comfort is. If you're always laying down, if you've got no job and you're sitting at home and you're watching Netflix all day, you don't know what comfort is. You need to go and do a hard day's graft, then come home, take your shoes off and put your feet up. Then you know comfort. That's comfort. It's like the polarities. That's what it teaches me, is like, to really understand life, you have to understand death. To really be happy, you have to understand what sadness is and what depression and what suicidal thoughts are. You need to know that. And that's why you see like a lot of the comedians struggle, because they're constantly trying to push this happiness, which takes them to this place of darkness, because they're always taking the piss out of themselves, And that's it. And it's like people laughing at you. It's like they struggle with this constant judgmental look at themselves.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what they're really doing is affirming putting negative affirmations in their heads.
That's right.
That over time
That's
they'll
right.
believe.
That's right. That's the critical part, the affirmations. And you have to bring these into your life in whatever way you do. You do for you. So whatever your future looks like, you need to start painting that picture now.
Okay. Can't just fast forward past ayahuasca, because I know ayahuasca's big right now. It's trending with people like Aubrey Marcus and Joe Rogan, Graham Hancock all talking about it. So for anyone out there who's considering taking this journey, do you have any advice?
Wow. My advice for somebody that's going to sit with ayahuasca, I've got lots of advice. I've got lots of advice for them. And it's like, the first thing is you need to start turning up for you first before you even consider going on one of these life transformation journeys, or ayahuasca or DMT or mushrooms or San Pedro or any of them. You have to start turning up for you. So start doing stuff first for you. Be serious about who you are. Ask yourself them questions. Start to learn to meditate. Start to get quiet. And at that point, when you start to get quiet, then you can start to understand who you are before you go to this journey. Because one of the things I've learned is that your intention before you sit, you need to understand what that intention is. It can't be vague. You need to look at it for a week and think, what do I want to learn? You need to file it down to one sentence. I want to learn this, because I've sat with numerous people over the years, and some people talk for 10 minutes. And it's like, I don't even know what you wanted. So that they won't get what they need, and they'll come back again and they won't get the answers that they need. So you have to really figure out what it is that you want. And then you will learn that one thing. Then you can integrate that one thing, But then you need to do that in your daily life. Don't just have intentions for ceremony.
Yeah.
Have intention every single day of your life. And that's your affirmations. Put it out there every day. But be clear. Be clear on that process. Say what you want in the future, and it's yours as individual to you. But go through 3 or 4 different things that you want. Aim towards them. You do, and that's what ceremony teaches you. You're not meant to go and sit and sit and sit and sit and sit. It doesn't work. You then just like you're getting off your head.
Yeah.
The idea is to do it and then integrate it and then do it every day.
Yeah. With my upcoming ones, my intention is to, like we spoke about beforehand, open myself up to receiving and feeling worthy of receiving, because that's been a major problem. Like for me, just in terms of self-sabotage and not feeling good enough and that imposter syndrome. So really going in with that intention, I feel is going to give me the best chance to get the answers I need to actually open up to that. That's
amazing. You're going to get some great advice from the mother, because you're clear on your intention, and you just stick with that and you meditate on that every day. You meditate on it and then you come out and then you implement it. You implement it, and it's a game changer. It really is a game changer, and you'll start to see that you'll manifest the most amazing people start to come into your life, and then your direction starts to change because you think you're something now, but you're not. They're just labels again. It's massive.
Gonna ask you a few questions and then we'll wrap up, my man. Okay. Knowing everything
I'm having some trouble with my earphone here.
Oh, that's all right. We'll see how we go.
Okay.
With everything that you've been through, growing up a Scouser, moving towns, and then losing your friend, your stepdad, and your father, dealing with all that grief, and then the lessons you've learned through ayahuasca, what would you say the quality of your life is like now?
I feel like I have a knowing and understanding of my own personal direction now. So what I'm learning more now is to tell people to not judge me today. You look at me and you don't understand what I'm doing now. Like my friends, my parts of my family, they don't understand why I'm doing this and why I put myself into such financial difficulty to do this, and it's like my vision is Judge me in 2 years.
Yeah.
Don't judge me now. I've got to paint this picture. And as I'm painting it, I've got new artists coming in that are helping me, you know? And as together we start to paint this picture and people start to understand that it's authentic, that it's real, and that it's a force for good, that we're here to help, then this journey, it'll show itself to other people.
Do you think you can remain so confident within that notion or that thought, like disregarding what people are saying about you, saying judge me in 2 years, because it is something that is helping other people?
They can't speak badly of me online. They can't. They can talk one-on-one, and they can do that. I hear that of like friends of friends that are talking about me behind my back, and they don't understand that you have to invest in yourself. You know, What I've had to do is get my own coaches. Like me and you, we both went to Aubrey. We both signed up to Aubrey and got accepted on, and it wasn't all what I hoped it was going to be, because I think when you're on the journey that we're on, there's an expectation that we want to know more, and there was no more there. There was just giving me more already what I knew.
Yeah.
So what I've had to do is I went to a couple of organizations here, one called Thought Leaders, an amazing organization, and Matt Church, he's a genius at what he does, and they teach you how to pull out your own IP. So I've had to go on this course and learn about how to go deep in myself, ask myself the real questions to figure out who I am and what I share. You know, and it was Matt that says that. He's like, you want to work with people, you want to do what you love with people that you like, the way that you want. That's his phrase, and I was like, yeah, I love that.
So
and that's
fucking powerful.
Well, you will never work a day in your life if you're doing that, and that's what we need to aim for. Because I honestly thought that I wanted to help depressed, right, suicidal men, right, which I do want to do.
Yeah.
But to help them, I can't charge them money. I have to do that for free. So I'll set things up to help them for nothing. You know, I want to work with committed, motivated, action-taking people. So then people will invest in themselves. They will put their money, like I have. I've spent, it's cost us nearly $100,000 to get to this point. So I've invested in this. I've seen that. And what I've noticed is, if you want to be a coach, right? Everyone's passing these coaching. I'm like, I'm a coach. They've got the bloody certificate. I'm like, what does that mean? It doesn't even mean anything. All right, you've learned how to speak to people.
Yeah.
Right? But what now? What now? What's the process now? How does it look? How do you get to earning a salary that is going to comfortably support your family? How are you going to do that? It's like no one tells you that. So that's what I'm creating in the background is something, a process and a system that can be delivered to people who are committed, motivated action takers that are going to change other people's lives. You know, they can't all be the same. They've all got to have different skill sets. So we build this fellowship of people that are all skilled at being themselves. And then we have kids who look up and see this group of individuals that aren't trying to be anyone but themselves. And kids can look up and go, I want to be part of that. I want to be part of that group, you know? And then each one of them people are teaching this way, right? And what I'm doing is like, it's morning routines, it's affirmations, but it's teaching people how to guide themselves to that point, you know?
Yeah.
So it's relevant to you, and then you teach all your people that way. So it's relevant to them, you know? And then when you've got the map, you can see where you're going, and the future looks bright, you know? Then you can do it. And then if you've got that and you can aim towards your goals, anything is possible. And we do it collectively as a group.
That's awesome.
That's where I see.
Shit.
It's massive.
What are you most grateful for right now?
What am I most grateful for right now is my drive and determination. That's what I'm most grateful for. I don't know where it comes from. I'm adamant that I turn up, and I do. That's what I'm most grateful for. I try not to procrastinate. I try my best not to say the word try. So I just do. I do. And then when I find myself, my awareness kicks in, and then I go back to doing. So that's what I'm most grateful for right now is the energy to be able to keep this up.
Powerful, man. Last question. If you had the chance to put a message on a billboard where you know thousands of people would see it every day, what would that message be?
Believe in yourself. You are enough.
That's awesome, man. Good affirmation.
That is. That's it. It is, yeah. Believe in yourself, you're enough.
Sweet, man. To wrap up, just want to acknowledge you, first of all, for taking time to do this. Really, really appreciate it, considering what you're putting together back there on your whiteboard. Copyright. But most of all, man, I want to acknowledge you for the fact that you've been through all of that. You've been through all of that grief. You've sat with Mother, you've learned from her, and then you've taken those learnings and you're using it to help other people, which is fucking amazing, bro. And I'm stoked someone like you is doing that, especially here in Perth.
Brother, and it's a pleasure knowing you now, and this is like the first time we've had, I'm sure.
You're right.
I lost my speakers, as I said, but yeah, as I say, we've only just had this chance to meet and to chat. And I'm sure that people, what I'm noticing in Perth is if there's lots of people like us that are pushing the boundaries a little bit and are getting out their comfort zones to help others. And we're creating an amazing community of like-minded, conscious people that are just here to help others, and it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to come on and say what I need to say. And I hope it touches somebody somewhere and they start maybe come down to the beach and start to understand what the community that we have down there are people like us. Yeah. And then it allows other people to start to come in. Then they start to understand why we do what we do, because we speak like this. We're doers.
Yeah. It's an environment where you're going to be accepted no matter what you think of yourself or what others think of you.
Exactly.
Awesome, bro. Thank you so much. You have a good day, eh?
Thank you, brother. Take care.
Appreciate you, bro. Bye.
Take care.